Today, we explore the most significant global news stories that are shaping our world. From escalating conflicts in the Middle East to concerning geopolitical tensions over water resources, the world is witnessing impactful events. Here are today's top 10 stories you need to know. Pakistan has issued a stern warning to India regarding the potential weaponization of water under the Indus Waters Treaty. This statement was made during a seminar on the treaty, where officials emphasized that any attempt to deprive Pakistan of its rightful water share could threaten regional peace and stability. The Indus Waters Treaty is a crucial agreement that governs water sharing between the two countries, and its violation could escalate tensions significantly. As water scarcity becomes an increasingly pressing issue due to climate change, the stakes have never been higher. Both nations have a long history of animosity, and such provocations could easily ignite further conflict. Analysts suggest that this warning highlights the vulnerability of water resources in South Asia. Moving forward, the international community is likely to watch closely how India and Pakistan navigate this delicate situation, as missteps could have dire consequences for millions. Diplomacy will be crucial in addressing these concerns and ensuring that both countries adhere to the treaty's terms. Tensions between the United States and Iran have flared once again as both nations engage in a series of retaliatory actions. Following a cargo ship attack in the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. conducted airstrikes on Iranian positions, escalating fears of a broader conflict in the region. These hostilities come after a period of tentative diplomacy, with both sides having previously agreed to halt attacks and renew talks. The strategic Strait of Hormuz is a vital passageway for global oil shipments, and any disruption could have significant implications for the world economy. Analysts warn that this escalation could derail any ongoing diplomatic efforts, further complicating an already fraught relationship. As tensions mount, oil prices are likely to rise, affecting economies around the globe. The international community is closely monitoring the situation, urging both parties to reconsider their aggressive postures. The coming days will be critical in determining whether a new cycle of violence can be avoided. The conflict between Ukraine and Russia continues to escalate, with Ukraine launching a significant strike on an industrial facility in Volgograd. This attack is part of Ukraine's broader strategy to cripple Russian military capabilities by targeting key infrastructure. The Ukrainian president has stated that these long-range strikes aim to diminish Russia's revenue and demonstrate the war's impact on the Russian populace. In retaliation, Russia has intensified its drone attacks, resulting in casualties in Ukraine's northeastern regions. This back and forth illustrates the complexity of the conflict, now in its fifth year, as both sides seek to gain the upper hand. The war has already had devastating consequences, leading to thousands of casualties and massive displacement. As the fighting continues, the international community remains divided, with some countries supporting Ukraine while others back Russia. The situation remains fluid, and analysts predict that the conflict could escalate further in the coming weeks, prompting renewed calls for a diplomatic resolution. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas has escalated significantly, with renewed fighting reported in the region. After months of relative calm, tensions flared as both sides exchanged airstrikes and rocket fire, leading to casualties on both sides. This resurgence of violence comes just months after a fragile ceasefire aimed at restoring peace and stability. The humanitarian situation in Gaza remains dire, with many civilians caught in the crossfire. International observers are alarmed by the potential for a larger conflict, given the historical volatility of the region. Previous escalations have led to devastating consequences, including extensive loss of life and infrastructure damage. The international community is urging restraint from both parties and calling for renewed dialogue to address the underlying issues fueling this conflict. With the situation rapidly deteriorating, it remains to be seen whether diplomatic efforts can be revitalized to prevent further escalation. Rescue efforts are underway in Venezuela following a devastating earthquake that struck the region. Teams are tirelessly digging through rubble in hopes of finding survivors amid the destruction. The earthquake has led to widespread devastation, with many homes and buildings damaged or destroyed. Rescue operations face significant challenges due to the difficult terrain and ongoing aftershocks, which pose risks to both rescuers and survivors. The government has declared a state of emergency, mobilizing resources to assist affected communities. International aid is being coordinated to provide necessary support, including food, medical supplies, and shelter for those displaced. As rescue operations continue, the emotional toll on families and communities affected by the quake is profound. Experts warn that the recovery process will be long and arduous, requiring substantial support from both national and international entities. In the wake of this disaster, the resilience of the Venezuelan people will be tested, and their needs must be prioritized in the coming months. An extreme heat wave is currently sweeping across the United States, impacting millions as temperatures soar to record highs. This weather phenomenon has raised concerns about public health, with officials urging residents to take precautions against heat-related illnesses. The heat wave coincides with the 4th of July celebrations, prompting warnings about outdoor activities and fireworks safety. Cities such as Dallas and Phoenix are experiencing some of the highest temperatures, with many residents struggling to cope with the heat. Energy demand is surging as people rely on air conditioning, leading to fears of power outages. Emergency services are on high alert, prepared to respond to heat-related emergencies. This unusual weather pattern can be attributed to climate change, which has intensified heat waves across the globe. As the nation grapples with this extreme weather, discussions about climate policy and adaptation strategies are becoming increasingly urgent. The next few days will be critical in addressing the impact of this heat wave on communities. The global economic outlook has deteriorated significantly as inflationary pressures escalate across various regions. Recent data indicates that the prices of essential goods, such as food and energy, have surged, severely straining household budgets and diminishing purchasing power. Central banks, including the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank, face the daunting task of adjusting interest rates to combat inflation while simultaneously promoting economic growth. This delicate balancing act has resulted in heightened volatility in financial markets, creating a ripple effect of uncertainty for both investors and consumers. Analysts warn that persistent inflation could trigger recessions in major economies, leading to widespread job losses and reduced consumer spending. Governments are now under immense pressure to devise effective policies that support their citizens, particularly vulnerable populations hit hardest by rising costs. As nations navigate these turbulent waters, international collaboration will be essential in addressing shared economic challenges. Looking ahead, the next few months will be critical in assessing whether governments can implement successful strategies to stabilize their economies and restore confidence. In a surprising turn of events, Iran and the United States have agreed to resume diplomatic talks aimed at de-escalating tensions. This agreement follows a series of aggressive encounters, including military strikes and accusations from both sides, which have raised fears of a wider conflict. The backdrop of these negotiations includes the 2015 nuclear deal, from which the U.S. withdrew in 2018, escalating hostilities and mistrust. The decision to renew talks has been met with cautious optimism from international observers, who see this as a potential step toward reducing hostilities in the region. The negotiations will focus on several key issues, including nuclear development and regional security concerns, particularly Iran's influence in Iraq and Syria. Both nations understand the importance of finding common ground to prevent further escalation that could destabilize the Middle East, a region already fraught with conflict. Analysts are closely monitoring whether this diplomatic breakthrough can lead to tangible progress in resolving long-standing disputes. The upcoming discussions will be pivotal in shaping the future of U.S.-Iran relations, with hopes for a comprehensive agreement that fosters lasting peace. The climate crisis is deepening, with alarming reports highlighting extreme weather events occurring across the globe. From unprecedented wildfires in Canada to severe droughts in parts of Africa, the impact of climate change is becoming increasingly evident. These extreme weather conditions have led to significant economic losses, displacement of communities, and threats to food security. Scientists warn that these events could have dire consequences for ecosystems and human populations, particularly in vulnerable regions that lack resources for adaptation. The urgency for action has never been greater, as governments and organizations grapple with the need for immediate and effective measures to mitigate climate change effects. International summits are being convened to address these challenges, with a focus on sustainable practices and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. However, progress has been slow, with many nations struggling to meet their climate commitments, often due to political and economic constraints. As the world witnesses the devastating impact of climate change, the call for collective action has become a rallying cry for activists and concerned citizens alike. The coming years will be critical in determining whether global leaders can unite to combat this pressing issue and implement transformative policies that prioritize environmental sustainability. The Israel-Hamas conflict has escalated dramatically, with both sides engaged in violent exchanges resulting in numerous casualties. Following several months of tenuous calm, the situation has sharply deteriorated, marked by intensified airstrikes from Israel and retaliatory rocket fire from Hamas. This surge of violence has plunged the region into chaos, with the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsening significantly. Civilians, already living under dire conditions, are now facing increased suffering as critical infrastructure, including hospitals and schools, is heavily damaged. This resurgence of hostilities comes after a fragile ceasefire that had briefly rekindled hopes for peace, making the current violence all the more disheartening. The international community, including various governments and humanitarian organizations, is once again urging both sides to exercise restraint and return to diplomatic talks. However, with emotions running high and long-standing grievances at play, the prospects for a peaceful resolution appear increasingly bleak. Analysts caution that if the violence continues unchecked, there is a substantial risk of a wider conflict that could destabilize the entire region. As both sides entrench their positions, the coming days will be pivotal in determining whether diplomatic efforts can be revived or if the cycle of violence will spiral further out of control. Thank you for watching today's News Roundup. Which story shocked you the most? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates.